Hi, I'm Rita Wilkins, also known as the Downsizing Designer. So there was a time when heirs were so excited to receive their parents' and grandparents' most prized possessions. This included the fine bone china, the lead crystal, sterling silverware. They not only were proud of it, but they also used it regularly. So if we didn't have room in our homes, we also passed it on to other family members, or we stored them in the attic or in the basement as a way of preserving them to pass them on to our kids someday. So sentimental items actually are a heartbreak for unwanted heirlooms. But if you have adult children, you probably know by now that they don't want our stuff, and that really does hurt. So you've loved those items, you've used them, you've cared for them, and you look forward to giving them to your kids at some point in the future. You even held on to them for years, along with many other things that you probably have accumulated yourself, fully expecting that when they were grown and had their own homes, that the kids would need them and would welcome them into their homes just as you did many years ago. But for the most part, they clearly do not want our stuff. But then we're left with the question, why? So as baby boomers, we're now faced with the process of downsizing, decluttering their own homes and their own stuff. We have to face that harsh reality that our kids don't want our belongings, and it would be helpful to understand why. So I'm creating just a small historical perspective that might help. Help us understand how the unique generational values, the tastes and priorities have changed over the years, and how they've influenced the way that our kids feel and respond to receiving our cherished belongings that have been passed down from one generation to the next. And it's also helpful to try to uncover the reasons why our kids have little or no interest in our stuff. And it's also important that we learn to adapt to this changing dynamic while also helping our kids understand the value and importance that we have on passing things down, some of our most cherished things. So the challenge then lies in bridging that gap between our sentimental valuing of heirlooms and the changing preferences of today's younger generation to reject these items, and what that might mean for future generations. But the bottom line is, how can we preserve the essence of our family history while adapting to these evolving trends? So it's important that we get into the minds of each generation to make kind of thought-provoking comparisons that will help us begin to understand the different viewpoints and values that have played a significant role in shaping their attitudes and approach to the preserving of treasures passed down through the family. So according to Pew Research, this is a little bit of an overview of generational differences. This generation grew up during the Great Depression and the war, World War II. They were influenced by a time of great scarcity and developed a frugal mindset. They were resourceful and they valued a simple life, hard work, and family. Their few possessions were valued for their practicality, their usefulness, and also for their longevity. So the next generation to think about is maybe our generation, the baby boomers. 1947 to 1964 is when we were born. And we grew up in the post-war era, a time of great economic growth. And this led to consumerism and the desire to own and accumulate many possessions. And to baby boomers, these items came to represent success, status, and also security. And while they valued hard work, it became the center of their life and identity, leaving not as much time for that family work-life balance. So then comes Generation X, born in 1965 to 1980. So Gen X grew up during the information age. They were influenced by the rise of early technology and instant gratification, and also social media. It was the beginning of social media. While they appreciate material goods, they don't prioritize them quite as much as their parents do. And they tend to value a more minimalistic approach to life and aesthetic. So they prioritize experiences over physical possessions and value a balance of hard work and time to live life more fully. The next generation is Gen Y, also known as millennials, born in 1981 to 1996. So millennials grew up with technology and the digital age, leading to a new kind of clutter, and that was digital clutter, such as emails, texts, photos, and social media. They value experiences over material possessions and have little reverence for stuff from the past. So they value sustainability, a simpler, more minimalistic environment, work-life balance, and work that aligns with their core values for professional growth. And then last, at least in this comparison, is Gen Z, born 1997 to 2012. So this generation was born into the digital age and grew up with that easy, quick access to technology and the internet. They value meaningful work, individuality, authenticity, sustainability, and they will borrow and rent things or repurpose things rather than buying new. So obviously times have changed. What is valuable and sentimental to us is not necessarily the same for our kids, and they value different things. Their tastes, their styles, their priorities, and their attitudes are different from ours. But there is good news. So we do differ, and these are some of the ways that we differ from the younger generation, and inheriting large amounts of possessions. Excuse me, I'm sorry. One is physical possessions. So they don't value physical possessions the same way we do. Their minimalist aesthetic does not allow room for clutter or excess stuff because it takes up rooms for things for things that they don't want, they don't need, and they probably will not use. So their perspective on possessions is that it must be useful and serve a purpose. So the stuff that we pass down, in other words, will overwhelm their simpler desire for a simpler lifestyle. The second one is emotional attachment. They're not emotionally attached to stuff like we are. So they are mostly detached from physical possessions because to them it is just stuff that can easily and quickly be replaced, borrowed, or rented if needed. And they don't value stuff the way that unless they need it and they might use it. And the third difference is smaller homes and smaller living spaces. They value living, for the most part, in smaller, more affordable homes with less stuff, unlike some of the large homes with a lot of stuff that we grew up in. And additionally, the higher costs of homes and mortgages make it not as practical and certainly somewhat unfeasible for them to take in the large furniture, the rugs, the artwork, etc., that we might have to pass down. So our large furniture would overwhelm their smaller homes. A fourth way that we are different is experiences, not stuff. So they value spending their money on experiences, creating new memories, rather than buying more stuff that requires their time, money, and energy. So on the other hand, for many years, we have prioritized stuff and they prioritize quality time. These are some generalizations, but, and also they're changing. Certainly for us, a lot of these are changing. Number 5 is accumulation. They choose not to accumulate possessions the way that we've done. Less is more, one in, one out is their mantra. Owning fewer possessions that's more manageable, is peaceful, it takes less time, money, energy to maintain it. So our consumer habits of buying more led to too much stuff, stress, and also overwhelm. And then minimalism is another thing that makes us a little different. They prefer a minimalist lifestyle and aesthetic. They choose to live with less. Therefore, they don't have as much clutter as we might in our homes. And they don't want that burden of the clutter filling their basements, their attics, and garages with boxes and bins that will likely not ever get opened. And a lot of this, the reason I'm saying is because I think it hits home with many of us that we're now trying to clear a lot of that out, and they're just trying to prevent it. So baby boomers and younger generations are also seeking a more meaningful life. The next thing that they are different from us is clutter. So they want to avoid that burden of physical clutter and mental clutter and also all that stress associated with it. And by refusing to accept our heirlooms, by saying no, they're intentionally trying to avoid cluttering their own smaller homes. And then number 8, sustainability is a difference with the younger generation. They respect the environment and don't like wasting stuff. If they don't need it and they won't use it, then they choose not to buy it. So obviously, this is an area we too are changing, but it has in the past differentiated the younger generation. So if they inherit our stuff that they won't use, they will likely donate it or dispose of it. And then number 9 is excess stuff. They don't value holding on to stuff just in case, like many of us do, so that they have it just in case they might need it someday. They prefer to use what they have and not become a repository for all the excess stuff. Their smaller homes don't warrant it anyway, and they prefer to avoid that additional expense of a storage unit if at all possible. So if they need something, they're willing to borrow it, rent it if necessary. So they don't want to fill their attics, their basements, their garages with just in case stuff like we did. And the last thing that makes us somewhat different is simple living. So they prioritize simple living with less stuff to have more time, money, freedom for what matters most to them. So obviously this is changing for a lot of us baby boomers because we too are trying to downsize and declutter to live that simpler life with less stuff and less stress. So there is good news. How the baby boomer generation is similar to the younger generation. So the first one is baby boomers and the younger generations are choosing to live a simpler life with less stuff. I don't know if you've found it. I certainly have in what I do as the Downsizing Designer. And as we start to downsize and declutter our homes, we're purging all of that excess stuff in our lives to make room for less stuff, less stress. And by rebelling against family heirlooms, our kids are actually trying to prevent that burden of clutter like we once had, filling our basements and attics and garages with boxes that probably won't be opened. The second way that we're similar is baby boomers and the younger generation are seeking more meaningful experiences rather than more stuff. So as baby boomers, as we become empty nesters, as we retire and enter that third act of our lives, we choose to seek new experiences that are meaningful and create new memories. And the third way is baby boomers and younger generation are choosing to live in smaller homes. Many baby boomers are choosing to downsize to smaller, more manageable, more affordable homes to have fewer expenses, less maintenance, and less upkeep. And then baby boomers and younger generations are also embracing intentional living. As we age, we tend to need less and we buy less. What we do buy is more intentional, less impulsive. And we're spending money on what is truly important to us. So baby boomers and the younger generation are benefiting from this digital age, as many of you have probably experienced. We're discovering the many advantages of using technology to do things like digitize photos, old film, and documents. And by using the cloud for storage, we prevent that need for all those boxes and bins in our basements and attics. So there's even better news, and that's steps that we can take right now to start bridging that gap. Because if your children are saying, I don't want your stuff, these are some ways that we can be proactive and kind of an intermediary to have conversations with them. So the first thing is to take an inventory of your own home of anything that you want, what you'll use and what you don't want and what you won't use. And if you're downsizing, obviously you want to take into account the size of your new smaller home, what will fit and what will look good in your new smaller space. And obviously there's no sense in taking more than what will fit because you'll only crowd it and clutter it. So after you've done your own inventory and you know what you want and don't want, the second step would be to open up the door to conversations. You might have read the book Swedish Death Cleaning by Margareta Magnusson. And if you follow that methodology, it's called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. What you do is you invite your kids to your home to walk through, ask them what they do want, write it down, mark it. And ideally, if you're downsizing, you might want them to take it with them now. And then let them tell you what they don't want. So keep an open mind about this and also a cool head. Promise yourself to be okay with the fact that they don't want certain things. Don't be offended if they don't want something. Because if they're brutally honest with you, it gives you the freedom to let go of things that you might have been holding on to, assuming that they would want it someday when they really don't. So if they don't want it, just let it go. So this is also the perfect opportunity to share stories about particular pieces of furniture, artwork, photos, anything that's been meaningful to you, and tell them why. It's also a perfect opportunity for them to share with you what particular items are particularly meaningful to them. And I wouldn't be surprised by the items that they choose because, it's such an individual thing. But what people told me, the childhood toys, the selected artwork, greeting cards, projects that they worked on in grade school, high school, it's kind of funny what they value, but those are the things that they will want to take with them. And obviously, if they do want some of the furniture, the china, the crystal, whatever, these heart-to-heart conversations open the doors for sharing stories about your family, about the history, the values, stories that they may never have heard before that will help them develop their own newfound respect and appreciation for the treasured possessions and family heritage. This could be an opening for them to say, I didn't think I wanted it, but, given what you said about Grandma and Grandpa's furniture, maybe I do want a piece or two. So then the third step would be to invite family and friends, close friends in. So just like you did with your kids, invite them to walk through the house, choose what they might want from the things that you don't want or your kids don't want. And you might also take that time to share stories with them about why these have meant so much to you. So make sure you set a date for them to pick up and remove those items from your home. And number 4 is donations. So donate the remaining items to charities that are you closely align with your values, so that you know that if someone wants it, needs it, or will use what you're giving away. It could be women's shelters, veterans' homes, Habitat for Humanity. There's so many, but make sure that it aligns with things that you value. And ideally, they'll also make arrangements to pick up, saving you time, energy, and expense. And the 5th step would be disposal. So dispose of any of the remaining items. Might be helpful to have a clean out specialist come to help you with that final effort. So then there's really great news at the end, and that's about finding the common ground. So preserving our family heritage isn't just about passing down the physical items. It's also about taking time to share the stories and sharing our values too. So by finding the common ground between our sentimental side and their desire to redefine how family treasures are passed down, we can ensure that our family legacy will live on long after we're gone. So let's embrace this challenge. Consider it a teaching moment, a learning moment, an opportunity to listen, to learn and grow closer to our kids by having meaningful conversations where both sides are heard, knowing that together we're keeping the spirit and essence of our family alive for many generations to come.